तृप्ति कुमारी की
जय।
श्री गुरुवे नमः।
श्री गुरवे नमः।
श्री गुरुवे नमः।
श्री गुरवे नमः।
श्री गुरुवे नमः।
श्री गुरवे नमः।
आचार्यं मां विजानीयात् नावमन्येत कश्चित् नमर्त्य बुद्ध्या सूयेत सर्वदेव मयो गुरु। हे परम प्रियतम,
हे परम प्रियतम,
पूर्णतम पुरुषोत्तम श्री कृष्ण,
पूर्णतम पुरुषोत्तम श्री कृष्ण,
तुमसे विमुख होने के कारण,
तुमसे विमुख होने के कारण
अनादिकाल से हमने अनंतानंत दुख पाए,
अनंतानंत दुख पाए,
एवं पा रहे हैं,
एवं पा रहे हैं।
पाप करते करते,
पाप करते करते
अंतःकरण इतना मलिन हो चुका है,
इतना मलिन हो चुका है
कि रसिकों द्वारा यह जानने पर भी कि तुम अपनी भुजाओं को पसारे, अपनी वात्सल्यमयी दृष्टि से हमारी प्रतीक्षा कर रहे हो, तुम्हारी शरण में नहीं आ पाता, हे अशरण शरण, तुम्हारी कृपा के बिना तुम्हें कोई जान भी तो नहीं सकता, ऐसी स्थिति में हे अकारण करुण, पतित पावन श्री कृष्ण, तुम अपनी अहेतुकी कृपा से ही हमको अपना लो, हे करुणा सागर, हम भुक्ति मुक्ति आदि कुछ नहीं मांगते, हमें तो केवल तुम्हारे निष्काम प्रेम की एकमात्र चाह है, हे नाथ, अपने विरद की ओर देखकर
अपने विरद की ओर देखकर
इस अधम को निराश न करो।
इस अधम को निराश न करो।
हे जीवन धन,
हे जीवन धन,
अब बहुत हो चुका,
अब बहुत हो चुका।
अब तो तुम्हारे प्रेम के बिना,
अब तो तुम्हारे प्रेम के बिना
यह जीवन मृत्यु से भी अधिक भयानक है।
मृत्यु से भी अधिक भयानक है।
अतएव प्रेम भिक्षाम देहि।
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 बोलिए साकेत बिहारी श्री राघवेंद्र सरकार की
जय।
वृंदावन बिहारी श्री यादवेंद्र सरकार की
जय।
श्रीमद सद्गुरु सरकार की
जय।
जय जय श्री राधे। जय जय श्री राधे। जय जय श्री राधे। जयति जगद्गुरु गुरुवर की, गाओ मिले आरती रसिक वर की। गाओ गाओ मिले आरती रसिक वर की। गुरुपद नख मणि चंद्रिका प्रकाश, जाके उर बसे ताके मोह तम नाश। जाके मात नाथ तव हाथ करवास, ताते होए माया मोह सब ही निराश। पावे गति मति रति राधावर की, गाओ मिली आरती रसिक वर की। गाओ गाओ मिली आरती रसिक वर की। अरे मन मूढ़ छाड़ नारी नर हाथ, गुरु बिनु ब्रह्म श्याम न देंगे साथ। कोमल कृपालु बड़े कृपा सिंधु नाथ, पाके इन्हें आज तू अनाथ हो सनाथ। इन्हीं के अधीन कृपा गिरिधर की, गाओ मिली आरती रसिक वर की। गाओ गाओ मिली आरती रसिक वर की। भक्ति योग रस अवतार अभिराम, करे निगमागम समन्वय ललाम। श्यामा श्याम नाम रूप लीला गुण धाम, बांट रहे प्रेम निष्काम बिनु दाम। हो रही सफल काया नारी नर की, गाओ मिली आरती रसिक वर की। गाओ गाओ मिली आरती रसिक वर की। लली लाल लीला का सलोना सुविलास, छाया दिव्य दृष्टि विच प्रेम का प्रकाश, वैसा ही विनोद वही मंजू मृदुहास, करे बस बर बस उच्च अट्टहास, झूमी चले चाल वही नटवर की, गाओ मिले आरती रसिक वर की, गाओ गाओ मिले आरती रसिक वर की, जयति जगद गुरु गुरुवर की, गाओ मिले आरती रसिक वर की, गाओ गाओ मिले आरती रसिक वर की। आरती प्रीतम प्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी, आरती प्रीतम प्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी की, दून सिर कनक मुकुट झलके, दून श्रुति कुंडल भल हलके, दून दृग प्रेम सुधा छलके, चसीले बैन रसीले नैन गसीले सैन, दून मैदन मनहारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी, आरती प्रीतम प्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी, दूनी दृग चितवनी परवारी, दूनी लट लट कनी छवि न्यारी, दूनी भौमट कनी अति प्यारी, रसन मुख पान हसन मुस्कान, दशन दमकान, दूनी बेसर छवि न्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी की, आरती प्रीतम प्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी, एक उर पीतांबर फहरे, एक उर नीलांबर लहरे, दून उर लर मोतिन छहरे, कंकनन खनक किंकिनिन झनक, नूपुरन भनक, दून रुन झुन धुनि प्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी, आरती प्रीतम प्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी, एक सिर मोर मुकुट राजे, एक सिर चूनरी छवि छाजे, दून सिर तिरछे भल भ्राजे, संग ब्रज बाल लाडली लाल, बाह गल डाल, कृपालु दून दृग चारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी की, आरती प्रीतम प्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी की, आरती प्रीतम प्यारी की, के बनवारी नथवारी की। यस्य साक्षात् भगवती ज्ञानदीपप्रदे गुरो मर्त्या सद्धि श्रुतं तस्य सर्वं कुञ्जरशौचवत् एष वै भगवान् साक्षात् प्रधान पुरुषेश्वरः योगेश्वरै विमृग्यान्घ्रिर् लोकोऽयं मन्यते नरम् यमुना निकटतटस्थित वृन्दावन कानने महारम्ये कल्पद्रुमतलभूमौ चरणं चरणो परिस्थाप्य तिष्ठन्तं घननीलं स्वतेजसा भासयन्तमिह विश्वम् पीताम्बरपरिधानं चन्दनकर्पूरलिप्त सर्वाङ्गम् आकर्णपूर्णनेत्रं कुण्डलयुगमण्डितश्रवणम् मन्दस्मितमुखकमलं सकौस्तुभोदारमणिहारं वलयाङ्गुलीयकाद्या नुज्ज्वलयन्तं स्वलङ्कारान् गलविलुलितवनमालं स्वतेजसा पास्तकलिकालं गुञ्जारवालिकलितं गुञ्जापुञ्जान्विते शिरसि भुञ्जानं सह गोपै कुञ्जान्तर्वर्तिनं नमत मन्दारपुष्पवासित मन्दानिलसेवित परानन्दम् मन्दाकिनीयुतपदं नमत महानन्ददं महापुरुषं सुरभिकृतदिग्वलयं सुरभिशतैरावृतः परितः सुरभितीक्ष्णपणमा सुरभीमं यादवं नमत धनी गुरुवर धाम निवास सुनो मन पुण्यन पुंज सोपाईजु बनी दीन प्रपन्न रहो गुरु के नित सेवा सोताई रिझाई व्यर्थ गवाइए जो सब धामन वारो वृंदावन पे और वृंदावन हूँ गुरु धाम व्यवहारो जो गुरु के पद प्रीति जुड़ी तो भजो चली आवे गो ब्रह्म विचारो है हरि निर्मल भक्तन को गुरु है अधमों को उदाहरण हारो और को गुरु हो या न हो गुरु मेरो कृपालु सुभाग हमारो और को गुरु हो या न हो गुरु मेरो कृपालु सुभाग हमारो। श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की श्रीमद् युगल सरकार की जगतगुरु श्री कृपालु महाप्रभु की श्री वृषभानु दुलारी कीर्ति कुमारी राधा रानी की श्री भक्ति धाम की श्री राधा माधव धाम की जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे।
प्रथमं सद्गुरुं वन्दे श्री कृष्णं तदनन्तरं गुरु पापात्मनां श्रीकृष्णस्त्वमलात्मना प्रपन्नाहं सदा श्यामा गुरु पादारविन्दयो तस्य प्रेरणया तस्य दिव्यादेशं वदाम्यहम् वन्दे वृन्दावनानन्दा राधिका परमेश्वरी गोपिका परमां शुद्धा लादिनी शक्तिरूपिणी यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वम् यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तद्वंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशम् मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। The divine souls will be having a few minutes of Nam Sankirtan, and after that I'll continue with the explanation of who is Radharani. Radhe 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 Shri Radhe
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 Oh Radhe 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 Shri Radhe
Radhe Radhe Radhe Shri Radhe
Radhe Radhe राधे श्री राधे
राधे राधे 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 राधे श्री राधे
राधे श्री राधे
राधे श्री राधे
राधे राधे राधे
राधे राधे राधे
राधे राधे राधे श्री राधे
राधे राधे राधे श्री राधे
ओ राधे 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 श्री राधे
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 राधे श्री राधे
राधे श्री राधे
राधे राधे राधे
राधे राधे राधे
राधे राधे राधे श्री राधे
राधे राधे राधे श्री राधे
ओ राधे 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 श्री राधे
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 राधे राधे राधे श्री
राधे 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 श्री राधे
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 राधे श्री राधे
राधे श्री राधे
राधे श्री राधे
राधे श्री राधे
राधे राधे 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 राधे श्री राधे
राधे राधे राधे श्री राधे
ओ राधे 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 श्री राधे
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 ओ राधे श्री राधे
राधे श्री राधे
ओ राधे श्री राधे
राधे श्री Radhe,
Radhe 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 Shri 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 Radhe,
Radhe Shri Radhe,
Radhe Shri Radhe,
Radhe Radhe 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 Shri Radhe,
Radhe 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 Shri Radhe,
Oh Radhe 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 Shri Radhe,
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 Radhe 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 Shri Radhe.
अलबेली सरकार की। In my last lecture on Sunday, I started explaining about who is Radharani. It's a very technical description because Radha is God, and understanding about God requires some intellectual description and technicalities. However, much more important than those technical details is understanding our relationship with Radha and how to realize that relationship. Nonetheless, the technical details are still important because although in our Rup Dhyan we forget about who Radha is and who Krishna is, meaning we forget about their divine status. That's what doing Raga Nuga Bhakti means. We don't think of them as God. We love them as our own personal friend, beloved, mother, father, child. That's the main part of Raga Nuga Bhakti. Nonetheless, when we're not doing Rup Dhyan, when we're having to keep our mind engaged in devotion while living in the world, it's important to understand why do we have to do devotion to Radha Krishna. And to know that, we have to know who they are, actually who they are, what is their divine status. Then we understand how lucky we are to be able to consider them our friend or our beloved. We understand what a big grace it is for them to meet us on that level, and for them to say, just put aside my divine status. We have to be able to appreciate that. So who is Radha? Let me briefly review. You've been hearing this from Sri Maharaj's Narad Bhakti Darshan lectures, and you've also heard it from one or two of my lectures when I explained who is Shri Krishna before Janmashtami, and last Sunday when I started to talk about who is Radha. So let's have a little review. Shri Krishna, Supreme God, has unlimited powers. However, out of all of those powers, 3 are main And out of those three main, one is supreme. The three main powers are his personal power, also called his internal power. In Sanskrit, we call it Swarup Shakti. The other two powers are Maya Shakti, the cosmic energy, and Jeev Shakti, all the infinitesimal individual souls. They make up his Jeev Shakti, or soul power. But out of these three, his personal power is main. Swarup Shakti is supreme. Antaranga Swarupa Shakti Savar Upare. Chaitanya Charitamrit says, out of all the powers, Swarup Shakti is supreme. Sometimes we say that Swarup Shakti, we also call it as Yogamaya Shakti. It's also known as Para Shakti. It's also known as Chit Shakti. These are all names for the same supreme power. And that same supreme power in personal form is Radha. So sometimes we say Radha is Yogamaya Shakti, or we say Radha is Para Shakti, she is Swarup Shakti. But this Swarup Shakti has many internal aspects. And you learned that because Shri Krishna's internal inherent qualities are Sat, Chit, Anand, therefore that Swarup Shakti expresses itself in three forms. The Sat aspect is called Sandhini Shakti. This is called the almighty power of God, but as you learned in Sri Maharaj's Narad Bhakti Darshan series, because of that Sandhini Shakti, Shri Krishna has form. His virtues or guna are revealed. His divine abode is revealed. His leelas are revealed. All of these things happen due to this Sandhini Shakti, which is the Sat aspect of his Swarup Shakti. So when we say Radha is Swarup Shakti, we can also say Radha is his Sandhini Shakti. So because of Radha, or with Radha's grace, Shri Krishna has a form. Without the effect of Sandhini Shakti, which is none other than Ansh of Radha, Shri Krishna would be formless Brahm. You can't see him, you can't taste him, you can't touch him, you can't smell him, you can't talk to him, you can't hear him. Just formless Brahm. But with Radha's grace, with the effect of Sandhini Shakti, Shri Krishna has his names, his forms, his leelas, his qualities, and his abodes. The Chit aspect of Swarup Shakti has several amazing effects. Chit means that which is alive. So with this Chit Shakti, God is all-knowing. This is why the expression of that Chit aspect is called Samvit Shakti. Vid means knowing or knowingness, and Sam is short for Samyak, which means total. So due to the Chit aspect, Shri Krishna is all-knowing. This Samvit Shakti also gives this amazing quality to the divine existence that is the total opposite of this world. In this world, everything is jara, other than the souls. The things in this world are non-living. So when we experience something, we're experiencing through our senses, which are mayic. So our senses are technically non-living, although they're acting as a living organism due to the presence of the soul, but our senses are made of mayic energy, so they're inherently non-living, lifeless. Our senses are experiencing the objects of the senses, which are also made of maya and therefore lifeless. This is why the happiness or pleasure we get from this world, it's just the result of the interaction of lifeless matter with our lifeless senses. And even our man and buddhi, our mind, those are also made of maya and therefore lifeless. So the pleasure of this world is limited by that nature of it being just the result of life, the interaction of lifeless senses with lifeless matter. But in the divine world, everything is chit, chetan. Everything is alive. So Shri Krishna's unlimited saundarya, his beauty, which goes on multiplying every second, that is the result of this samvit shakti. His virtues, saushilya, like kindness, patience, generosity, all these virtues of Krishna are also unlimited. This is due to the effect of samvit shakti. Saukumarya, Shri Krishna is ever young. And when we see Shri Krishna, he is ever new to us. We can never get bored. You can keep looking at just his cheek, and you can be fascinated by the beauty of his cheek for infinite years. This is the effect of this samvit shakti, which is ansh of Shri Radha. So with Radha's grace, all of this is happening. And then there is the anand aspect of Shri Krishna's personal power. The anand, the expression of this Swarup Shakti due to the Anand aspect is called Ahladini Shakti. This Ahladini Shakti is the power of bliss. So with this power, Shri Krishna experiences the bliss. Out of these three, Sandhini Shakti, Samvit Shakti, and Ahladini Shakti, Ahladini Shakti is supreme. Why? Because Sat, Chit, Anand. Sat is in Chit, and Sat and Chit are in Anand, therefore Anand is supreme. So the power of bliss is the supreme power. See, we talked about Krishna having unlimited powers. Out of those unlimited powers, three are main, but out of those three, one is supreme. His personal power, Swarup Shakti. And then you learn that Swarup Shakti expresses itself in three ways. Sandhini Shakti, Samvit Shakti, and Ahladini Shakti. But out of those three, Ahladini Shakti is supreme because it contains and includes the other two. So that means that this Ahladini Shakti is something very special. That's why Ved says, Tasya Shaktayastvanekadha Hladini Sandhini Jnani Chakriyadya Bahuvidha Shaktayah Taswahladini Variyasi. Radhikopanishad says, Ahladini Shakti is supreme out of all the powers. However, this Ahladini Shakti also has an essence, which I explained to you on Sunday. The essence of bliss is love. So the essence of Ahladini Shakti is called Prema Shakti. This Prema Shakti has 8 levels. Prem is also called Bhakti. Prem and Bhakti are synonymous. So the 8 levels of this divine love power are called Prema Bhakti, Sneha Bhakti, Mana Bhakti, Pranaya Bhakti, Rag Bhakti, Anurag Bhakti, Bhavavesh Bhakti, and Mahabhav Bhakti. 8 levels. In general, we say Prem is such an amazing divine power, being the essence of bliss, which is the essence of God's personal power, which is the supreme power. Just the power of divine love, in general, we say, is amazing because due to that power, Supreme Brahm, Shri Krishna, forgets his godliness. Completely gets drowned in the love of his devotees who are in possession of that divine love power. Imagine, out of all of God's unlimited divine powers, they all reside within him dependently. He is the controller of those powers. That is why he is called Shaktiman. He is the owner and controller of those powers. However, Prema Shakti is the one divine power which still resides within Shri Krishna, but who controls him. He is controlled by that Prema Shakti. And that Prema Shakti has those 8 levels that I just told you. Prema Bhakti, Sneh Bhakti, Man Bhakti, Pranay Bhakti, Rag Bhakti, Anurag Bhakti, Bhavavesh Bhakti, Mahabhav Bhakti. Devotees can reach to those different 8 levels depending upon their style of devotion, whether they love with feelings of servitude or friendship or parental feelings or feelings of loving Krishna as their beloved. They reach to higher and higher levels, also depending on their level of selflessness. This top level, Mahabhav, only the gopis and those souls who worship Shri Krishna in the style of the gopis reach the level of Mahabhav. But within Mahabhav also there are different levels. There is Rudha Mahabhav. Rudha means ultimate. But then there's Adhirudha Mahabhav, which means beyond ultimate. And within Adhirudha Mahabhav, there is Madan Mahabhav and Modan Mahabhav. Both of these, and these are all different experiences of the divine ras, the nectar of divine love. So this Madan and Modan Mahabhav are experienced in Milan, in meeting Shri Krishna. So the gopis reach to these levels actually within Mahabhav, and Shri Krishna's experience, of course, reaches to that level. But beyond that, there's something called Mohan Mahabhav. This is experienced in Viraha. And within that experience of Viraha, there are 10 states that are not experienced by even Shri Krishna or any gopi, even the Mahasakhis. This is called Divyonmad. 10 states of divine ecstasy, which are only experienced by Radha. They're described in the Brahmar Geet of the Bhagavatam in 10 shloks. It's like a codified description where Radharani is talking to a bumblebee, and in those 10 shloks, she's actually revealing these 10 states of divine ecstasy called Divyonmad. Beyond that is something called Madanakhya Mahabhav. Madanoyam parat parah rajate ladini saro radha meva yah sada. That is the reserved seat of Radharani. Nobody, even Shri Krishna, can reach to that Madanakhya Mahabhav. So when we say, who is Radha? We're starting to get some picture. We say, okay, she is Shakti and Shri Krishna is Shaktiman. That's a very broad description. But then you understood, okay, she is the Yogamaya or Swarup Shakti, and part of that Shakti is the Sandhini Shakti that gives Shri Krishna his names, forms, abodes, leelas, virtues. That happens due to Radha. And the Samvit Shakti makes his beauty so fascinating and ever increasing every moment. And the Ahladini Shakti aspect makes Shri Krishna ever blissful. And the essence of that Ahladini is prem, which is so great it makes Shri Krishna's intellect drown and forget that he is God. He becomes completely absorbed in that state of divine love. And that divine love has 8 levels, and the topmost level is Mahabhav. And within Mahabhav, there's Rud and Adhirud. And within Adhirud, there's Madan and Modan. And beyond that is Mohan. And beyond that are the 10 states of Divyonmad. And beyond that is Madanakya Mahabhav. And that is Radha. So she is personified Mahabhav. She is the absolute origin of the divine love power. She's the personified quintessence of the divine love power. When you think about it, the essence of Swarup Shakti, Ahladini Shakti. The essence of Ahladini Shakti, Prema Shakti. The essence of Prema Shakti, Mahabhav. The personified essence of Mahabhav, Radha. So there's no word for that in English. In English, we say essence of something. Like if we filled this room with rose petals and then extracted the essence out of those rose petals, we might get a gallon of rose perfume. But then if you had a whole room full of drums of that rose perfume, and you put all that together and extracted the essence out of all of that, and then maybe had a little bottle like this of concentrated essence. So that's the essence of the essence, which we call the quintessence. But what do you call the essence of the essence of the essence of the essence of the essence? That is Radha. So there's no way to fully describe Radharani. This is why we say even Shri Krishna fails to understand Radha's greatness, beauty, lovingness. His intellect can't reach to that extent. This is why when the Ved describes about Radha, well, one time some Brahmagyanis, some knowers of God, were wondering about Radha. They had a thought, Kasmad radhikam upasate adityo bhyadravat. This is from Atharva Ved, and in the Atharva Ved there's a Radhika Upanishad. So this is telling that those rishis were wondering, Kasmat, why? Kasmad radhikam upasate. Why, above all others, do we worship Radha? So as soon as they had the thought come in their mind, adityo bhyadravat, shrutaya uchu, the Vedas, the Shrutis, in personal form, shining bright like the sun, appeared before them and began to speak. Nasamyak puranani vadanti. No Puran, no Ved can fully describe who is Radha. But to give you some idea, because you know Shri Krishna is the Lord, he is the Anshi of Mahavishnu, who is the Anshi of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar, who are the governors of one Brahman, and there are unlimited Brahmans in the universe. And the Lord and governor of all of that is Mahavishnu, who is but one tiny fraction of Shri Krishna's personality. That Shri Krishna, Jagad Bhartur Vishwasammohanasya Shri Krishna Shri Krishnasya Pranatodhikamapi. That Shri Krishna sees Radha and knows Radha to be more than his pran, more than his life. Although he is the Lord of the whole universe and he is the one who entices the hearts of every living being in this universe, yet he feels that Radha is pranatodhikamapi, even more than his own life and soul. That Shri Krishna, yasya renum padayor, yasya anke vilunthan, Krishna devo golokakhyam naiva sasmaradham padam, sansha kamala shailaputri devadhatrim namamaha. These Shrutis went on to explain to those rishis that Supreme God Shri Krishna, when he gets a chance to get some of Radha's foot dust where she's stepped somewhere in Braj and he sees her footprint, he takes that dust and puts it on his head. Supreme God does that. That gives you an idea who is Radha. When Shri Krishna, yasya anke vilunthan, when Krishna lies down and Radha keeps his head in her lap, Krishna devo golokakhyam naiva sasmaradham padam. He completely forgets about the bliss of his divine abode. He forgets he's God. He forgets everything except Radha. Sansha Kamala Shailaputri. Kamala, Lakshmi, and Shailaputri, Durga, they are but Ansh of Radha. Just like Vishnu is Ansh of Shri Krishna, all the female forms of God are Ansh of Radha. Shakti Dhatrim Namamaha. She is the giver of all the divine powers. And we bow to her, we surrender to her. So said those Shrutis. So just as Shri Krishna is Supreme God, absolute Supreme God, remember I used the words avatari, that also applies to Radha. Radha and Krishna are avatari. All the forms of God emerge from them. They are absolute Supreme God. So Radha is Brahm, just like Shri Krishna. Here in Sri Raseshwari Radharani Mandir, you see Radha and Krishna together on the left side of the shrine in Ras pose. And in the middle we have Radharani sitting on the throne. Why is that? Because although I said Radha is Shakti and Shri Krishna is Shaktiman, which beautifully explains their relationship, because Shakti cannot be separate from Shaktiman. A Shakti cannot live or exist outside of its Shaktiman, and the Shaktiman is nothing without its Shakti. So Radha lives in Krishna and Krishna depends on Radha. But in this case, the Shakti and Shaktiman, see, in the world there are two types of examples. There is the example of, let's take a rose and the fragrance of the rose. So the fragrance comes from the rose, but when the fragrance of the rose dissipates, the rose is still there. Then there's another example of kapur, camphor. The fragrance itself has taken a physical form as the kapur. And when that fragrance evaporates, the kapur is gone. So in that case, the Shakti and Shaktiman are completely one. This is like Radha and Krishna. Shakti and Shaktiman are completely one in the case of Radha Krishna. So, Shri Raseshwari Radharani is Supreme Brahm, who has taken the form of Shakti as Radha and Shaktiman as Shri Krishna. So that is why we have Shri Raseshwari Radharani in the center on the throne, and she has become Radha and Krishna, who always do the Leelas in Vrindavan and who eternally reveal the divine bliss in their divine abode. Nonetheless, although we understand intellectually to some extent Radharani's divine status, we should never think that Radha is someone else and Krishna is someone else, or that we're comparing Radha and Krishna in this way, that one is more important or greater than the other. No, that would be a grave transgression. Ved says, Ye yam Radha yascha Krishno rasabdhir dehe naikah kridanartham dvidha bhut. The same Radhikopanishad says, whatever is Krishna, the same as Radha, and whatever is Radha, the same as Krishna. The two are not two, they are one. Rasabdhir dehe naikah. They only have one body. But kridanartham dvidha bhut. They took two forms in order to do krida, lila, to play. To reveal the divine bliss through their playful leelas, they adopted two forms. And they've had those two forms since eternity, but they are not two. They have one mind, one soul, one body. They are one entity, but appearing in two forms in order to reveal the leelas. And it's amazing that although they are one, they have different personalities. See, we would think, one time, one gopi was relating a leela that happened to another gopi who hadn't seen it. And she said, "Oh gopi, something amazing happened today. Radha and Krishna did the exact same thing at the exact same time. What they did was something that had never been seen before. They were sitting together in a kunj and they were enjoying each other's company, and Radha was sitting on one side, and she would look and smile and say something, and Krishna would laugh and look and say something, and gopis were just admiring from outside the kunj. They were enjoying the ras of this vision of Radha and Krishna interacting in this way. Now something just came into Krishna's mind. He said, you know, Pyari Ju always does man. And when she does man means a divine state of resentment. In love, even in the world, sometimes the beloved becomes resentful. In a loving way, to show their beloved that don't treat me like that. It doesn't mean there's not love. Now, in divine leelas, there's no such thing as worldly anger or worldly lust or worldly jealousy. But the divine love power manifests itself or expresses itself in many different ways. The bliss, the ecstasy of that bliss expresses itself in many different ways. And one of those ways is resentment. So Radha expresses such resentment sometimes. And whenever she does that, Shri Krishna has to try to understand what mistake he's done and then try to repair things. He tries to do pranay. In Hindi we say manate hain. He has to go to Radha and find some way to appease her. So Shri Krishna thought, this would be such a sweet experience if just one time I got to do man and Radha had to come to me and appease me. I'd like to experience that. Just as Shri Krishna was thinking this, that I'm going to do man, although I have no reason to do man, but I'm going to do man. As he thought that, Radha thought the exact same thing at the exact same moment. I'm going to do man for no reason, just because I like to experience when Pyare Ju comes and tries to appease me. So both, although they were still sitting beside each other, both turned their faces the other way and started ignoring each other. But because they both had their faces turned away, Radha didn't realize that Krishna was also doing man, and Krishna didn't realize that Radha was also doing man. So then both started thinking, Radha is thinking, why isn't he saying something? I'm obviously upset here. Although I'm not upset, but he should think I'm upset, and he's not saying anything. And Krishna is thinking, this is my very first time doing man, and Pyari Ju isn't saying anything. So due to this, both actually became irritated. And they both actually entered into a man state, and both got up in a huff and walked to opposite ends of the kunj and sat down, still ignoring the other and showing like pouting and just waiting, when is my beloved going to come and try to appease me? So the gopis became very fascinated and confused. What's happening? They were just talking and laughing, and all of a sudden they became silent and they went to opposite ends of the kunj. So the gopis tried to intervene, but how could they help? Because when they ask Radha, normally when she's doing man, they'll ask her what happened. And she'll be very forthcoming. Krishna said this, but then he did something else, or he did this foolish thing, whatever it may be, she lets them know what happened. But in this case, what can she say? Krishna didn't do anything. She just decided to do man like that. So gopis are asking Lali, what happened? She's not saying anything. Some gopis are inquiring from Krishna, and he's also staying quiet for the same reason, because he has no reason to be doing man. The whole night passed like this, and gopis gave up. When the morning came, both Radha and Krishna thought the same exact thing at the same exact time again. What am I doing? I must have given so much worry to Pyari Ju, Krishna is thinking. And Radha is thinking that Pyare must be so upset. He doesn't know why I'm doing man. So both immediately stood up and in their own thoughts started walking back towards their beloved. And they almost bumped into each other in the middle of the kunj and both started to appease the other at the same time. Oh, I was doing man for no reason. I'm so sorry. Krishna says, oh, no, I was doing man for no reason. You also did man for no reason? So this gopi was explaining to the other gopi that, see, this is such an amazing thing that happened. But the other gopi's response was, that's not amazing. Radha and Krishna are one. Why shouldn't they be thinking the same thing at the same time? What's amazing is that they don't always think the same thing at the same time. What's amazing is that they have different personalities. Radha and Krishna are completely one, like milk and whiteness. We call it by two different names. We say there's milk and the shvetima, the whiteness of the milk. Although we call it by two different names, is it really two different things? Can you put the whiteness of the milk over here and put the milk over there on that side? No, it's the same thing, just described from two different aspects. Similarly, Radha and Krishna are one entity, but we describe them as two separate personalities because we see them in two separate forms, when in reality they are only one. So thus far you've understood that Radharani is Shri Krishna, and both Radha and Krishna are Supreme God. All forms of God emanate from them. All male forms of God emanate from Shri Krishna. All female forms of God emanate from Radharani. Nonetheless, within the field of divine love, within the field of Leelas, Radha's importance is elevated. But that's only within the experience of ras. That's not an intellectual topic. Saints understand this, that in the most intimate Leelas of Govardhan, Vrindavan, Barsana, Radha holds supreme importance. But this is not a topic of intellectual discussion. It's not a competition between the devotees of Radha and the devotees of Krishna. Only the rasic saints who have experienced that bliss, they can playfully joke around. If there's a particular gopi who tends more towards Radha's side, she may tease a gopi who tends more towards Krishna's side. And if those gopis descend on earth as great saints, they may express those feelings, saying, oh, my Radha is the queen of Vrindavan and Shri Krishna cries when she does man. So there may be some playful teasing in that way, but these are the expressions of the highest saints who experience the oneness with Radha and Krishna. So we should never take that to mean that there is actually some kind of difference between Radha and Krishna. Sri Kripalu Maharaj teaches us to love both Radha and Krishna. However, whatever our internal nature may be, more towards Radha, more towards Krishna, or equally towards both, that's our own devotional, that's the flavor of our devotion. That's fine. But within that, we have to understand that both are one. Both worship each other. Krishnena aradhyate iti Radha. Radha's name has two meanings. One is the one who is worshipped by Supreme Brahm, Shri Krishna, and, or in the words of Shri Krishna, Radhaiva radhyate maya, Brahmand Puran. I worship Radha. But Radha's name also means Anayaradhito nunam Bhagavan Haririshvara. Bhagavatam. Radha is the one who worships Shri Krishna. So Radha means the one who worships Krishna, and Radha means the one who is worshipped by Shri Krishna. That Radharani and Shri Krishna both descended on earth. They descend many times, over and over again they take avatar. However, it doesn't happen as often as you would think. Radha Krishna visit our earth planet once in a day of Brahma, a kalp, which is 4.32 billion years. Brahma's one day. When you include his night, which comes before his next day, it's 8.64 billion years between each avatar of Radha and Krishna. So, taking that into account, their most recent descension is very recent. It's only 5,000 years ago. Shri Krishna descended in 3228 BCE. And Radharani came in this avatar. She came 1 year before him in 3229 BCE. Every time they come, there are slight differences. Sometimes Shri Krishna may come first, sometimes Radharani may come first. In this case, Radha came first. She appeared in the village of Barsana, and the God-realized saints, King Vrishabhanu and Queen Kirti, they got to have her as their daughter. Although she is the mother of the whole universe, just like Shri Krishna is the father of the whole universe, but when they take avatar, 2 lucky saints, or in the case of Shri Krishna, 4 lucky saints, 2 mothers, 2 fathers, get to become their parents. So tomorrow we're going to be celebrating Radha Ashtmi. Ashtmi means the 8th night of the Shukla Paksh, where the moon is getting bigger and bigger. So it's the 8th night since the moon was empty, since the Amavasya. That's the Ashtami, and we call it Radha Ashtmi. So it's about 2 weeks after Janmashtami, which is the 8th night after the full moon. So tomorrow is that day. And whereas Shri Krishna appeared at midnight, Radharani appeared in the early morning. So we celebrate her appearance at 5 a.m. Tomorrow morning we'll be starting the Kirtan at 4:30 a.m. and we'll do Baby Radha's Arti at 5 a.m. Then we'll continue with the program for the whole rest of the day. So tomorrow we'll be doing many different kirtans written by Sri Maharajji that explain and describe what happened on that day, what type of celebration happened in Braj. And tomorrow evening I'll be explaining more about not just who is Radha, but more specifically what is our relationship with Shri Radha and how can we actually attain the divine vision of Radharani and see her divine leelas with our own eyes. So now let us finish with a few minutes of kirtan while we try to visualize and feel the presence of Radha with us right now. मेरी बरसाने वारी प्यारी 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 प्यारी
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 मेरी बरसाने वारी 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 प्यारी 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 प्यारी
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 मेरी बरसाने वाली 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 प्यारी 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 प्यारी
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 मेरी बरसाने वाली 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 प्यारी 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 प्यारी
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 मेरी बरसाने वाली 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 प्यारी 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 प्यारी
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 मेरी बरसाने वाली 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 प्यारी 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 प्यारी
बरसाने